Good. Got it. All right, Karen. Now I got Karen light. See, I was so prepared. All right. So I'd like to call to order the regular session or the regular meeting for the Del Rio City Council, November 15th, 6 o'clock. Karen, would you make a roll call? Call roll call.
Councilmember Donaldson,
Here.
Councilmember Shirley,
Here.
Councilmember Lintel,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gagliotti,
Here.
Mayor Kerr.
Absent. Scott, I would like, Mayor-elect, I would like to have you, I would be honored if you would guide us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, my pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is Pastor Argadio here? That's the key.
Right here.
Perfecto. Mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto. Thank you for having me. It's what an honor to lead prayer for the city of and we're ready. Ready?
Por favor.
Well, thank you. Father, we want to thank you for your love, your grace. And I pray, Father, that you will give us your wisdom and show my brothers and sisters the needs for the city. Show us, Father, how can we make it better? How can we make it a better place for your creation? So I pray for wisdom, Lord, and love between, yes, sometimes these conversations get heated, but we need you. That's why we're seeking you. And I pray for everyone that is meeting here today and their families. Please give them protections and supply every need, Lord. We're seeking for wisdom. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we pray. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on to public comment. We're opening up for public comment. Public comment is on items that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken. If any of the comments require responses, staff will handle that. So Karen, do we have any anyone in the public who's wishing to speak?
I'm not seeing any hands.
Perfect. We'll close public comment. Moving on to consent agenda, moving to the board or asking the board, any of the board members care to pull an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I don't want to pull C6, but I would like an explanation from John. And it's really for the next council's benefit and for the public, and kind of just laying the expectations on what our post-COVID meeting situation is going to be, or post AB 361 resolution, because I believe this is the last month that we will have to do this, or we'll be expected to do this. So if you'd indulge, John, could you give us some background or give us some background on AB 361?
Yeah, so that's been going since the start of the pandemic. With the declaration of emergency from the state, it's enabled us to be able to hold Zoom meetings like this without you all publishing your personal home addresses for the public to show up to, as the Brown Act would have required pre-pandemic. So it's continued that. It does continue it technically through next year, but the governor is ending the state of emergency effective at the end of February. We've been moving in that direction as we've seen. We're learning to live with COVID. We're learning to deal with COVID and getting back to normal operations, or other than meetings right now, are normal back at City Hall. The only thing is that we've been talking about, can we do hybrid meetings like some of our bigger sister agencies are doing, which would be in person in the council chambers, but also with this online component where people could participate. online. And so far, we haven't been able to get our technological or our staffing resources up to where we need that to be able to do the hybrid. So we've been moving slowly before coming back, but starting next month, I've kind of canvassed everyone on staff and the council and with some of our other commissions and committees. And it seems like universally everyone's comfortable with coming back. So next month would be our first meeting back. I'm not making promises about being able to do it hybrid. We'll take it in baby steps in that regard, but we will definitely be back in the council chambers for the next meeting in December, which would be great because that's all we'll be swearing in at least 2 new council members. So it would be nice to be able to do that in person and have friends and family there to congratulate them and also see off the vice mayor and council member Lintel and thank them for their service and for everything that they've done for the city. So hopefully that answers your questions, Vice Mayor.
Yes, it does. Yeah, yeah. That's fine. Any other any members of the board have any questions about that? Council. All right. Seeing none, so we'll send it out to send it out to the public and ask if the public have any desire to pull the items from the consent agenda. Doesn't look like it. Coming back to the board, I'll entertain a motion to adopt entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So
I
moved.
move we approve.
So we got Councilmember Donaldson making motion and seconded by Councilmember Shirley. Sound good?
Sure.
Okay. All right, Karen, can you roll call vote?
Councilmember Donaldson,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Lintel,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gagliotti.
Aye. All right, moving on to old business. There is no old business. Moving on to new business.
Councilmember Gagliotti,
Yeah,
can I just make one comment real quick?
sure.
I wanted to announce, I know Mayor Kerr wanted this announcement made that she did undergo hip replacement surgery last week. That everything went well, she's recovering well, and she looks forward to seeing everyone in December. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knows where she's at.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Moving on to new business. The adoption resolution 2228 declaring city-owned properties as surplus land action item. City Manager Girton.
Yeah, thank you. So this is something that we've been talking about for a while, that I don't think for anybody in this meeting that this is a surprise that the Surplus Land Act is a process that we have to go through. It's a regulatory process from the state initially to make sure that parks and open space districts and stuff were aware when cities and counties and special districts were getting rid of surplus land and being able to get the opportunity to at least put in a proposal and purchase that land for open space and park needs. It was then expanded to include low-income housing because, as we all recognize, we're in a housing crisis in the state, and any opportunities to identify chances to increase our low and moderate income housing is a good thing. So that's what the intent of this was. That changed in 2021 to broaden that. Well, it changed in 2020, then in 2021 to expand it. So we have our properties that we're starting to make movement on. We have done processes in the past that don't circumvent state law, so we still have to go through the same requirements. We have agreements all the way back to the 1990s when we were first dealing with the disposition of the former Fort Ord properties, and all of those things still exist. If we go through this process and we were to negotiate with a developer as a result of this process for anything that they want to do, all of those agreements need to be considered and dealt with as part of that process. So this doesn't circumvent any other past agreements. But it's something that we have to do because we've talked about the fact that we as a city, we're a small city. We don't have the ability of some of the bigger cities, first of all, to maintain open space or to maintain a large park. We don't have the resources to do that. This has been a pretty big budgetary drain on our city, managing this open space for as many years as we have. So we want to expedite this process and get this moving. However, we end up developing or disposing of these properties, we can't maintain it in perpetuity the way it's currently being operated. But so that being said, there's still a lot of context to all of this. Any of those agreements and the things that we've agreed to in the past, that'll get worked out through the planning process. But we have this process we have to go through, and I'm going to share my screen here real quick to show you the properties that we're talking about. I can't start. Anyway, you can all read this, right? But the way with the little thing in front of me, I can't click the buttons. Anyway, you guys can see this. So basically, we what's that?
Basically,
Okay. So yeah, so we have steps that we have to go through.
So we have to go through.
Are you guys hearing the echo?
I think Councilmember Lintel needs to be muted.
You guys hearing the echo? I think Councilmember Lintel needs to be muted.
Okay, are we still getting the echo now? Can everybody hear me? Okay. All right. So as I said, the state requires through the Surplus Land Act that we go through certain steps, and we have to go in order of these steps. This is the first step, is at a regular meeting, declaring lands that we're not going to develop, that we're not going to use for city purposes, that we're not going to manage as surplus land. When we do that, then we have to send out a notice of availability to those folks who have notified the State Department of Housing and Community Development that they want to be part of this process. And it goes out, like it says here, it goes out to let people know that there's land available for potential low and moderate income housing projects, for open space and park and recreation projects, school projects, and infill opportunities and transit village projects. So we'll send the notice of availability out to Housing and Community Development and to the list, the very large list of people who are included on that to get notified for this. It's a 60-day process. We have to give them 60 days to respond if they want to respond to these properties with a proposal. We can't do anything. We can't negotiate with any other developers or anything in that time window. And then if anybody does respond with a proposal, then that's when we would start to talk to them about what their ideas are and does it work with the city's plans for the property. And that's where discussions about any other, past agreements and plans that we had for that property would come in, and does it work with what they want to do. These properties are complex for anybody who would want to provide these kinds of projects, because there's no utilities out to these properties, and there's a bunch of other issues that would need to be overcome that would be difficult for people who want to do these types of projects. That same reason it's difficult for a city like us to develop this kind of property ourselves. But anyway, we'll open it up and we'll see if anybody's interested, and if they are, then we'll talk with them. That's 60 days. We leave it open. If somebody proposes, then it'll be at least another month or two to talk with them before we make a decision. And then we need to work with HCD on letting them know who we sent it out to, process we went through, and if we got any proposals in. After that, then we can start, assuming nobody's applied through this process, then we can actually start to talk with the Parks District potentially about the 17-acre parcel, talk with the developer and possibly get into an ENA and a development agreement, start a specific plan process. All of that type of stuff would happen after this for the larger properties. But just in case anybody isn't aware, I want to make sure everybody's aware of which properties we're talking about here today. Here, this one I can get to full screen. So we're talking about what we typically refer to as Site 1, Site 1A, and Site 2. Site 1A, or Site 1, sorry, is the approximately.
City Manager Gerton, we're still looking at your slide. We can't see the map.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, all right. I gotta stop share on that one, I guess, and I always forget how Zoom works on this. There we go. Yeah, so we're talking about the 3 sites, Site 1, Site 1A, and Site 2, as we have them in our draft housing element. And Site 1 is the 230 plus acres that we started the RFQ process several years ago, and then for various reasons that got stalled. And so now we have to go through the Surplus Land Act process first before we can restart that development process. This is the property that's north of South Boundary Road. Everybody's familiar with that. Site 1A is the approximately 18 acres that's south of South Boundary Road. And then Site 2 is this kind of pie-shaped one that is adjacent to Highway 218, and also at the corner there kind of abuts the Frog Pond Reserve. So, you know, in the past, we've talked a little bit. We had a committee to start talking with the Parks and the Monterey Peninsula Regional Park District about whether or not they wanted to purchase this property to continue adding that onto the Frog Pond Reserve preserve, to expand that, basically Frog Pond 2 kind of concept. But again, to get this process going through the Surplus Land Act just enables us to continue those kinds of discussions and move that process forward. So with that, I'm available for any questions, and so is Alex if you have any legal questions about the process.
Questions? Councilmember Shirley?
Councilmember, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Gerton, just to clarify, in your staff report, you talk about parcels A, B, C, and D. So B and C equals Site 1. Is that correct? I just want to make sure we're clear.
Yeah,
Because you talked
so
about A
in
and,
the-
and D were sold, right?
right. So there, no, so yeah. So there's a lot of history and the maps changed. And so when we're talking about the history and we're talking about the 2 bookends of the property, yeah, that's A and D, I guess.
And
yeah,
D.
is what they used to
Okay.
be. Yeah, and then Site 1 is what we start calling the 230 acres in between that now. Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of calling it the B and C.
Okay. And then you mentioned, I mean, we obviously have agreements with TAMC for FORTAG. So all of those agreements that pertain to this land, we will address that if we get any interest in these parcels. It's not something we need to put out there ahead of time and say, like, by the way, this land is tied to this use already, and this is what we're going to expect it to be used for. There isn't any kind of preempt, let people know what we're offering them in the Surplus Land Act.
No, that would be part of the
No.
discussion with them. If somebody came to us with a proposal and said, yeah, we want to explore developing this property with you, then that's when we would have those discussions with them. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I just want to make sure that those agencies know we're gonna hold true to those, at least the FORTAG agreement, since we did sign the master agreement, and that we're keeping that in mind as we put that land out there. And I was just wondering, can you provide like, maybe the list is too long, but some ideas of who will be notified about the surplus land? in terms of, agencies? I know you have to notify HCD, but in terms of local agencies, can you give us a smattering of some ideas of who you're going to send this to?
Yeah, well, so HCD has a list of people who've told them that they're interested in getting these notices of availability. A lot of those are bigger low-income housing providers. We'll also be reaching out to local providers like the Parks District, and it includes mostly local low-income housing providers, Mid-Penn, Chispa, places like that. And then for Parks District, I don't think it doesn't include state and federal like BLM and things like that, because they're exempt from the Surplus Land Act. And they've all also told us that they're not interested already. So, but yeah, we could reach out to all of our local park and open space providers as well.
Okay. And does it have to be everyone? So like, I'm thinking like Marina Coast Water, for instance, they would provide water for this. Do we have to offer it to them as well?
No, they're
No.
a utility
Okay.
provider. Yeah. They're
Okay,
not a
so they're not
developer.
included.
No,
Okay.
technically by the law, we're only required to send it out to those that are on the HCD list.
Okay.
So to be included in these notices of availability under the state law, then the developers and the park and recreation providers would have already notified HCD that they want to be included on that list. And
Okay.
I don't know who locally has been included on that list, and if there's any that we know of locally who meet the same requirements but aren't necessarily on that list, yeah, of course we'd send it out to them too, because we want to work with local providers.
Yeah. Okay, good. And then last question, once we do this once, we don't have to do it again, right? I think this was prompted by the potential for a lease with MPE that we talked about last month. But once we do this, right, it's done. We don't have to do it again.
Right. Yeah. And this had nothing to do with the MPE lease. This was prompted by wanting to move the developments forward and coming out of COVID and starting to talk with the Parks District. And we can't make any meaningful progress on any of those fronts until we've gone through this process.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. All right. That's it for me. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Lintel, you have any questions?
Oh, I muted her. I don't know if she knows she's on mute. Unfortunately, I
You're
can't.
muted.
Councilmember Lintel, why don't we go to Councilmember Donaldson while we're figuring out Councilmember Lintel? Why don't we go to Councilmember Donaldson while we're figuring out Councilmember Lintel?
I'll allow her the opportunity. If Pat, if you would like to speak, you can go ahead.
The opportunity. If Pat, if you would like to speak, you can go ahead.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have no questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Donaldson?
Yeah, so I think the city manager did a great job laying out exactly what this process is. And it's really that requirement that we have to meet before we can have a broader conversation on what we ultimately want to do with those properties. It's pretty straightforward. It's a requirement that we have to meet. And I'm glad that we're moving forward with this.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. So what are the qualifiers at HCD? I have a couple of questions. Oh, you know what? So
Maybe it's been me all along that's been causing all the haywire here. All right, how do you guys hear me? And is there any more echo?
No, I think you're good now.
All right, great. Okay, so what are the qualifiers at HCD that ensure, I can't even read my writing, that ensure that the viability of the applicants? Like, is there, do they have a bank or not a bank? I mean, do they have kind of like a,
is there,
what it's past. There we go. Do they have a certain asset base? Do they have a certain, history? What is it that qualifies an applicant with HCD that gets them on that list,
I don't know details of that. Do you know details, Alex?
No, not, that's probably more of a Denise Duffy question, but it's generally affordable housing developers who do a certain percentage of their work is related to affordable housing. Generally, that's the main recipient.
Yeah, I think I'm sure that there's a requirement to be considered a low-income housing provider by the state. I just don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm kind of guiding you down a garden path here. I mean, I'm sure that that's true too. What is our obligation to engage these applicants once they drop in an application? How far do we have to take it?
I think that's a better question for Alex.
Yeah.
So you have to enter into good faith negotiations. So it doesn't mean not meeting with them and, putting them on, but, sort of working through, as Council Member Shirley said, some of the agreements that are existing on properties that will carry forward, financing, and that type of thing. But there is not the obligation to actually sell the land.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it's a
because the next thing is
procedural requirement.
Right. Okay. So the next question is that what's the authority or what's the autonomy that the jurisdiction has to make that decision? What process do we have to do? Do they bring it before? I mean, they go through good faith negotiations, which can take a long time, right? I mean, they could take a year. We could be in negotiations with any number of these developers, or any one of these developers. I mean, they may even require that we put it out to bid. That's a process in and of itself, a cost and expense that we may not have. Then what then authority and autonomy do we have to just say no to all of them? Say, no, we really have we've got another direction that we want to go. How do we convey that without walking into what sounds almost like kind of like a state orchestrated buzzsaw?
Yeah, I don't know that there is anything interpreting that I'm aware of, that sort of good faith requirement. But I think just practically speaking, it would be sitting down and talking, seeing if the project was right for the city, looking at the numbers, looking at the number of housing needs that we have from our RHNA numbers and things like that. And to your point, I don't know if that happens at a council meeting with specific findings, but I think whether it happens at the administrative level or the council level, the city would make specific findings to show why perhaps that project wasn't the right one or why it was the right one.
Okay. And then is it a queue of applicants? I mean, if like low housing developer 1 wants to do it and then low housing developer 2 wants to do it, do we have to work our way all the way through the queue and enter into good faith negotiations with the entire queue before we finally say, look, we've met the obligation, we're moving on?
Yeah, those that expressed interest in it, we would have to sit down and negotiate in good faith. And it could be that certain criteria were adopted by the city before we sit down with those groups to help sort of to rack and stack, as people like to say, which ones might be the best fit for the city.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be one at a time. We would take a look.
No,
at all.
right. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to make the good faith look at what was presented to the city for everyone responding.
Yeah.
What I'm so concerned about this is it's just bring me another rock, and we're just mired in a good faith effort in talking to a lot of dogs, and I'm being somewhat presumptuous. Maybe there aren't. Maybe there might be the developer that we are looking for, but I just wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
All right. So then that one, Councilman Shirley, let me just finish this one last question, and then I'll.
It just pertains to what you were just talking about. Isn't there a 90-day limit? I know that I saw they have 60 days to respond, and then don't we have 90? Is that 90 days getting back to them, or do we wrap up all negotiations within 90 days?
So that's 90 days after all of them have submitted their paperwork within those 60 days. So we have 90 days to sort of get through it all.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
That's an
Thanks.
excellent question. Thank you for asking that. All right. So then my last question is, again, why did site 1 and 1A find themselves into this pool? I can absolutely understand why the 17 acres was there. I mean, by definition, lands that we have no intention of doing anything on fit the bill exactly, but I'd cite 1A and 1 are not lands that have ever been defined as we're not going to do anything on them.
Right, so
So
it's not that we're not, it's not that we're not gonna do anything on them. It's that we as the city are not gonna keep them and develop them for ourselves.
Oh,
And 1A, we need to find a developer to do that, and so we have to
Understand.
go through this
all right.
process.
Yeah, no, I get the distinction now. Okay. All right, those are the ends of my questions. I'll take it back to the council. Has anybody else got any follow-up questions or anything they want to? No? Okay, so we take it out to the public. Anyone from the public like to comment on the process we have before us?
I think Mr. Clark has his hand up.
Mr. Clark?
Good evening. And as usual, John, thank you so much for always thinking about what's next. I appreciate that about the way your mind works. So I've been following this for a long time, and this may be a naive question, so just be gentle. But I know we've been in negotiations over the last two decades from time to time with people, and we've never, to my knowledge, I could have missed something, had to move it to surplus land before. So I'm not quite sure why it needs to go now. And the thing that concerns me more is by moving it to surplus land, do we lose any control? Is there any little gotcha in there that we're not aware of? That's my question.
Yeah, the reason that I can answer if you'd like me to.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I'd like an answer to that. That'd be great.
Yeah, because those are good questions. The reason we didn't in the past is because this law is new. It's only started since the pandemic, that for affordable housing, we have to open this up and give them first bite at the apple, basically. And then actually, maybe Alex, you could answer better whether or not we lose anything. I mean, we don't, but he can give you the lawyerly ease.
Well, I think, yeah, thank you. And through the mayor, nothing's to be lost here. This is a process that we have to go through. Again, there's nothing that says the city has to agree to any of the proposals made. And to Council Member Shirley's point earlier, any restrictions on the property will remain and will be vetted by those that choose to receive notice from the city, or I should say respond to notice from the city, and that'll be fleshed out during the due diligence period.
Thanks, Alex.
Next, we'll go to Mr. Waltz.
So I guess I want to line up behind Jim. This is exciting to see the city manager and the city taking plans to start to open up some possibilities in this part of the city. It's really neat to see. Speaking as a supporter and advocate for FORTAG, of course, is kind of my focus. And I hope that FORTAG as a project continues to be a value added element, regardless of the plans that the city pursues. So if that turns out at the end of what Councilperson Gagliardi indicated might be a bit of an extended process, that's great. We hope that FORTAG offers a linear park and non-motorized transportation to a population. If things happen more slowly or there's much more park space involved, we hope that the FORTAG trail provides access and connection for the residents of Delray Oaks, especially up to some of those amazing views at the top of the hill above South Boundary Road. So I'll only speak on behalf of Fred and myself as community advocates. We really look forward to continuing to work with the city to make sure that FORTAG is that value added element, no matter what the plans are pursued by the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see other hands. Oh, I see Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I have a question kind of in that vein of looking ahead to what's next. Let's say we go through the 60-day period and we're looking at entering into an ENA with the developer who wants to acquire all of parcel 1. we've got this Fortag Market agreement that says we're envisioning a trail through that parcel. What's the mechanism for making that happen? Presumably, it's not just waiting for the developer to come up with a specific plan and kind of hoping that the trail's there. It would seem that it would be more efficient to build into the sale or some point in the process well ahead of the specific plan, some mechanism to say, here's where we'd like to have the trail, making that connection through. So it's just a question, how would that work? And, is there anything we'd be doing now that, would potentially limit our options in that respect? Thanks.
City Manager, would you respond to that? I have what I think, but you'd be the right person to answer.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's a little bit cart before the horse. This process is to open it up to park providers, low-income housing providers, and work through that process. And as I said, give them the first bite at the apple. As the city attorney pointed out, any current agreements or stipulations that are attached to any of those parcels would have to enter into that negotiation.
That's right.
If anybody were to come to us through this process. The process after this process, I'm not prepared to speak to right now.
I think I mean, in the discretionary permitting process, there's going to be conditions of approval, and one of the conditions of approval is that they have to meet all the subservient agreements that we have, or no, they would be a subservient agreement to anything that we have. So
right, I mean, to Fred's point, if we were to go through this process and then engage with a developer for the South Boundary Road parcels, yeah, of course, we're going to work with the developer and make them aware of any agreements that we have and plans that the city wants, and that'll all work through that process.
exactly. I don't see any other members of the public, so bringing back to council, what's the action that we need? Do we just need to accept the resolution?
Yes.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to accept the resolution, or take the recommendation. And anyone?
I'll move we adopt resolution 2022-28 declaring city-owned properties as surplus land action item.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right. Karen, we get a roll call?
Councilmember Donaldson,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Lintel. You'll have to unmute.
Should mute it.
There she goes. Councilmember Lintel.
Councilmember Lintel. Aye.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Gagliotti.
Aye. All right, resolution passes.
Vice Mayor Gagliotti. Aye.
Okay. So moving on to the second item, 9B, discussion of definitions, city core values. This is just a discussion item, so there's no action taken. City Manager, are you going to take this, or it looks as though it's Councilmember Shirley's report? Is that correct?
Well, no, we'll turn it over to the Assistant City Manager, and then the committee members, which I believe were you and Councilmember Shirley, then can join in. This was really an opportunity to let the public know and let everyone know that we're working on these core values. The intention always was to bring them back in December to actually have the council adopt them. We want to, that was strategic because we also want to let our new council members have a shot at it as well. So we get the benefit of the wisdom of two councils. So that's why we put it on this agenda, so that you guys can talk about the process that you went through and the definitions you came up with. So I'll pass it over to Jeff.
All right. Assistant City Manager.
John, Vice Mayor, council members, Shirley, Donaldson, and Lintel, thanks for letting me be here. This took us a little bit, but once we got working on it, it seemed to go very quickly. Your committee for the city that handled defining the city's core values were Mayor Kerr, were Vice Mayor Gagliotti, Councilmember Shirley, and myself. We met over the course of about 3 hours, I believe, on a recent morning. And I want to give credit to Councilmember Shirley. She came in with a good set of initial definitions. And as a committee, we narrowed it down, sharpened them up. And what I'd like to do is show a quick PowerPoint about what our core values are. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. And let me see if I can get to it. Give me 1 second. It's not allowing me to yet. All right, can you see it?
Yeah, that's a good looking presentation.
So these are draft definitions, and it's a discussion of what our draft or our definitions for the core values are for the city. So we have a total of 6 core values. They are diversity and inclusiveness, fiscal responsibility, honesty and integrity, open communications and transparency, ethical behavior, and responsiveness to community needs and concerns. So the draft definition that we came up for diversity and inclusiveness is we believe that a healthy city is one that acknowledges and celebrates our diversity as a community and workplace without discrimination. We strive to ensure decisions are made from kindness and acceptance for all, and with recognition that differences are valued and make us a more vibrant and equitable community. So I'm going to go through all of them so you can hear the definitions, and then I will certainly turn it over to Vice Mayor Gagliotti and Councilmember Shirley for their input and any questions. Fiscal responsibility, the definition is we are fiscally accountable to our community. We are committed to the efficient and effective use of the resources we are provided. We will actively seek and secure ways to further the goals of our city. Our public budget process will be data-driven to wisely inform our decisions. And 2 things I'd like to point out about this is in the middle there, we will actively seek to secure revenues to further the goals of the city, which means it's an active role that we as city staff and the city council want to take to make sure that we are sustainable and we succeed. And then also public budget process will be data driven. And I think if you've attended any budget committee meetings in the last couple of years, you see that we get better and better at that every year. Honesty, integrity. We believe honesty is always the best policy. We show our integrity when we are authentic, honest, open, and fair, honoring all who trust us to serve them. We accept responsibility for our actions and strive to build credibility through our behavior. Open communications and transparency. We believe transparency is essential to achieving trust and accountability. We will listen for understanding, communicate openly, and respond in a timely manner. We will ensure public documents are easily accessible. And that also, that last sentence there is getting better and better with the help of Lee and the support you gave us to redo our entire file system in the last 1.5 years. Ethical behavior. We believe honesty is always the best policy. We show our integrity when we are authentic, honest, open, and fair. Wait, did I just repeat that again? I don't know how that got in there twice, so I'm going to move on. Apparently, I'm going to go back. I apologize for some reason.
Yeah, this is new. Responsiveness.
Okay, so responsive to community needs and concerns. Apparently I had an extra slide in there, so I'll apologize. We recognize that we're here to serve our community residents and to serve our residents in the larger community. We will actively listen, engage in problem solving, and facilitate solutions on behalf of Delray Oaks residents, businesses, and stakeholders. And I think I've gone through all of them. One of them apparently twice. If I've missed anything, let me know. Vice Mayor Gagliotti, I'll exit my screen and I can always bring it back up if you need it.
Yeah, no,
Back to you.
I think that's great. I mean, it's good that we have double the evidence. It's important. I mean, I really don't have anything to add to this. This was, I mean, I gotta, where the credit needs to be given is to you, Jeff, and to Kim. I mean, because I just basically sat there and grunted, you know, I mean, it was a very, very good effort, and I was glad to be part of it. But I mean, you guys really did the work. Your wordsmithing and Kim's kind of vision was, I mean, that's how this came together. So so with that, Kim, I mean, why don't you drive this? It's yours. You do everything.
I'm not someone who can edit on the fly. I know my limitations, and I knew I needed to come into the meeting with some draft definitions. That's just how I work. Turns out Jeff is the one who can edit on the fly and is really good at wordsmithing. So Jeff, thank you for that. Mayor Kerr had also gone over the definitions with me prior to the meeting. So I loved the collaboration amongst all of us. And Jeff, just to be clear, this was circulated throughout the city staff and police as well?
Yes, so it went through all the police department staff and the city staff for any edits or inclusions, and we actually had no other input. They all liked them, and I believe we put it on the city's website, and we haven't received, unless we have recently, Karen, that would be up to you to inform me of that, but I don't believe we've received any feedback.
Okay. Yeah, great. And I think, I think it's important to look at these values as something that we hold as city council people, but also that our staff holds as well, for their workplace environment and for all of our residents. So I think it is inclusive in that it takes everyone into consideration. So I just want to thank my fellow council member Gagliotti and Assistant City Manager Chief Hoyne for leading us through that. So it was a great process. Thank you. I look forward to bringing it back to the next council.
Yeah, no doubt. That'll be good. Any of the other council members want to comment?
Yeah, I would like to comment.
Please do.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, I'd just like to say thanks to the committee for pulling this together. It's excellent work. It's important that every organization defines their core values. There's no question about that. I served 30 years in the Army, and I still remember the Army core values, and I continue to try and live my life by those core values. And I see Louise Getzel is there. She could recite them too, most likely. So it's important that an organization does it. And also keep in mind that with core values, nothing's prioritized because all of them are equally important. So, you won't see this is core value number 1, 2, 3, so on. They're all important. So once again, thank you to the committee for your great work.
Ms. Lintel? Me.
I'd like to, this is Pat, I'd like to thank the committee for the outstanding work. I know it took a lot of effort and a lot of time, and I appreciate all you did. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, why don't we send it out to the public, see if the public has any comments? Jim?
Well, the big question, I guess, will be, I hope this will apply to campaigns in the future, because there were certain things in there that were honorable, honest, allow diversity. And inclusion and not getting mad at other people. And I think those are great core values. And hopefully we won't be submitted to any other campaigns like we were like this in 2018 that were disrespectful. So good for you guys, and I hope they stick.
Any other public comment? All right, not seeing or seeing none, we'll come back. Final thoughts of the council, anyone? Nothing? All right. We'll now bring up my. Again, thank you for Kim and Deb. I just wanted to say that one last time. All right, I believe that gets us through all our business items. So we have council reports, which were attached in the package. Correspondence also attached in the package. Our next meeting is December 13th, 2022, and it will be in face-to-face. Is that right there, Mr. Gergen?
In person, yes.
In person, yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, person.
We're going old school.
I hope I'm in town. All right, so with that, I'll call for adjournment at 6:51.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy holidays.